Hello again, Steve here with something I'm going to call a lesson from Mum. That's right, yeah. Mum, I remember one time, there's many things she taught us, of course, as many mothers do. And one of the things I remember her saying was that once we know something is wrong and we do it anyway, that's a sin. And at the time when she would tell us that, I was pretty young, and I thought, well, even if we don't know it's wrong, if it's wrong, it's wrong kind of thing, right? But later on, she explained it in a way that I guess I could understand. Well, is that, when you're really young, you're innocent because you don't know. I mean, you could steal your brother's toy or whatever, and you just think it's the right thing to do. You got to get something at all cost, right? And I think one of the values of this old time religion, or these old time myths, these old time stories and so on, is that if we can teach it to our children in a way, then that is applicable to us as well, because part of us remains that way, right? I mean, that's probably one of the reasons why people really sort of settle down and so on and relax when they're listening to somebody speaking about something really very technical, and then he breaks into a story. You can see people kind of relax, and they take in a different level of understanding. It's on that emotional, that human connection side. So when we teach kids about morality and so on, right and wrong, we do it through stories, and then fables and whatnot, and we talk about the stories. And in days gone by, old scriptures and so on, those were created during oral traditions, right? And through storytelling, it was a form of language. And so the idea is to draw the morals from the stories rather than just somehow believe the stories directly. And I think a guy like Jordan Peterson's doing a great job of that in terms of helping people to say, okay, these stories have been around for thousands and thousands of years. They've outlived everybody else. Let's see some value in them. And so anyway, no, but how this relates to today, I think, with what's going on with so many people, is in this red pilling, what people term as red pilling, waking up, whatever it was. I mean, 20 years ago when I was in a cult, we called it waking up, But for me, the process began probably back in the early 90s, when I began to see behind the curtain of the Wizard of Oz, if you will, sort of in quotation marks, right? Because I felt like I was in a world of insanity. I would talk to people about how, this taxation stuff, it's theft. I mean, I knew enough to realize that there was a time way back when governments could legalize murder. I mean, they go out and say, set up this idea that these people who are outside of our domain or whatever, or the people who were resisting the king or whatever, they were deemed to be worthy of being killed and drawn and quartered right in the village square or whatever. And that was the way it was done. And the prohibitions that go through all the different old religions, one of them is do not kill, right? Another one is do not steal. And people repeat this over and over again. But then I'd say, well, this has got to be theft, because I'd say, look, if you work for $10 an hour and and that's the agreement you made with the employer, but your employer's throwing $2 or $4 over to somebody else, some institution, then that individual is in breach of contract. They're supposed to give you the $10. You do whatever you want with it, give it to them if you want. Or if you're obliged to give it to somebody, then under the threat of being caged or killed or sanctioned in some way, well, you call it whatever you want, but it's theft. And people would say, yeah, but Steve, you think too much, or something like this, and it's just non-arguments. Oh, we need to have that, and besides, you have a social contract. I mentioned that to Jeff Berwick one time at Anarchapulco, and he says he lost his social contract. He'll get back to me when he finds it. It's pretty funny. Anyway, no, but in the old days, we talk about devils, the evil. And I just noticed something recently, actually, that devil is just D''evil, the evil, right? And and whatever the devil, and often too, what people I think are doing is they're projecting. They're saying, okay, well, I'm getting all these goodies, so I'll put that as a virtue. A certain amount of theft is a good thing, right? And the same thing with temptation, right? Temptation of the devil in the old stories is, it looks pretty good what the devil's offering, but it's actually always ends up being a sham and ruining us. So anyways, flash forward to the 90s, I ran across this organization called Detax Canada when the internet was just getting going. And these guys were doing seminars and whatnot around Vancouver and different places. And they were talking about how you got no moral obligation to pay anybody anything unless you agree to it. And so you don't have to pay your taxes. Well, this set up a firestorm of the mainstream media at the time. Anyways, it went on a campaign to defend the revenue department, right? Do not listen to these sham artists out there, no content to what they're saying, no debunking or whatever, right? And then probably in the 2000s somewhere, I was watching a video by Dean Ornish, and Dean Ornish is this medical alternative nutrition kind of guy, which I admired at the time. And he mentioned something about these freedom guys in England. Flash forward, Tommy Robinson, right? So I just looked that up on the early internet, and up came Robert Menard. Robert Menard. No, that would have been probably 2007, probably 2006. Robert Menard, I don't know if he's still around or not anymore, but he was talking about this free man on the land thing, right? Which has become this legal term now that cops, if you ask them more than 2 questions, they accuse you of being a free man on the land or whatever. From there, I found Dean Clifford, who, like nobody I've ever known, can describe the scam of the conversion into the corporate legal fiction, right? And Mark Stevens also did a great job of that. I mean, and so did I think Mark Passio. Mark Passio explains the 666 because he's into the occult and whatnot, right? Man is born on the 6th day. What man creates is coming from the 6, and then man enters the 6. So it's 3 6s in a row, 6 6 at the belly of the beast, right? Rather than just staying where we are, which is that we are men and women, right? You'll never find any obligation for men and women in all their legalese. It's always person, and also the plural of person is not people, it's persons, right? It's right there, it's hidden in plain view. And if you look it up, it's a corporation. That's what a person is a corporation, and yet. And so interesting, in this area where I live, Saskatchewan, the Saskatchewan Human Rights Code, the only place that the word human shows up is in the title. It's the only place. The rest of it's all person, which is a corporation according to the Interpretations Act. It's really hilarious. Citizen. I realized that citizen, I'm not a citizen. I'm not a Canadian citizen. How can I be a Canadian citizen? A Canadian citizen is a legal fiction that's created by somebody, or legal status, whatever you call it. Am I a legal status? I could have a legal status, but how do I be a legal status? You see what I mean? It's this trickery, I came up with this word today, verbology, so you can have that one. Interesting. And this is why, though, I think they want us to be documented and licensed for this and licensed for that. In the New World Order, they want us all into this ancient pledging, right? The early, who was it? The Woodrow Wilson's advisor. He said that, because we can't have overt slavery anymore, so we got to convert everybody into this ancient pledging system, and nobody will be the wiser of it. You can look it up, his speech. They call it Social Security. It was all just a plot to get us to enter these little offices, these legal offices, and then claim to be them. And of course, the rules and regulations are built around that. That was looking behind the curtain of the Wizard of Oz to me. Bang! Awaken. Never could I see it again. From there, then I found Stefan Molyneux, which really opened things up. And it comes back right around to the once we know better, if we act otherwise, it's sinful. Because he was into philosophy, and he was talking that the highest moral way to live really is to live in truth and honesty. And if we don't know something's right, according to our principles, according to logically extracted principles and what's right, then it's not the truth for us. So we must follow the truth. And if we think about it, the old definition of sin is missing the mark, right? If we miss the mark, if we're shooting our darts at a dartboard and we're missing the mark, we're not on target. right? That the mark is the truth. If we know that what we're saying is not truthful, but we're doing it anyways to gain advantage and so on over others, we are in demonic possession, I would say, in the old way of saying it. We are acting as the devil. We are a deceiver because we know better. And if you think about the origin of the devil, the story about it is the great deceiver, right? If somebody knows they're deceiving, they know what's right. They know the truth. But otherwise they wouldn't be deceiving. They'd just be ignorant. They'd just be a fool or somebody who's uninformed, say. But if you're deceiving, then you know what is right, but you're acting otherwise. And to wrap this up, I would say I think my mom was right. I think mom was right, which is that once we know the truth, once we know what is right, as best as we can see it, I must say, right? Because we can always refine it, and maybe we're in error, sure, but elements of our ways are in ignorance as well. But if we know as far as we know what's the best path for us, if we act outside of that, we're in sin. In the old time religion way of saying it, the old verbology. Anyways, that's my comment for the day. Steve here, doing great chatting. If you like what I'm doing, please like, subscribe, and share. And it's so great to see all the comments and new subscribers coming in. I will get around eventually to responding to your comments. I've just been busy the last couple of days like crazy. Talk again soon. Bye for now.